What if humanity's greatest defenders aren't the armies that blaze across star systems or the fleets that burn Xeno civilizations from orbit, but the warriors no one ever sees, the ones whose victories are erased, whose sacrifices are classified, whose battles cannot be spoken of? In a galaxy drowning in alien monstrosities, where entire sectors vanish beneath tyrannid hive tendrils and ancient Necron tomb worlds awaken with cold mechanical hatred, the Imperium depends on something far more precise than the blunt force of its endless war machine: the Deathwatch. To understand why this secret brotherhood exists, you must first understand the terrifying reality the Imperium hides from its own citizens. The galaxy is not hostile, it is predatory. Humanity is not an empire. It is prey struggling to survive in the jaws of horrors it cannot comprehend. Every frontier world is a potential feeding ground. Every derelict ship a breeding nest. Every unexplored moon a death sentence waiting to be triggered. The Imperium pretends its legions and fleets are enough to hold back the darkness, but deep within the Ordo Xenos archives lies a truth so bleak it is sealed behind layers of sigils. Many alien threats cannot be met with armies, diplomacy, or faith. They must be confronted in silence, dissected in secrecy, and destroyed before they ever bloom into system-ending catastrophes. This is the world the Deathwatch was built for. Traditional Space Marine chapters thrive on open war, orbital assaults, glorious charges, banners raised high, but Xeno's extinction requires something else entirely. It requires adaptation, stealth, precision, and warriors willing to act without recognition. The Deathwatch stands apart because their missions are not campaigns. They are scalpel strikes into the unknown, silent eliminations of evolving threats, preemptive purges of organisms too dangerous to classify publicly. Entire planets owe their survival to missions that will never be recorded, never be acknowledged, never be understood by those they saved. The Deathwatch does not march, they investigate. They do not conquer, they contain. They do not celebrate, they erase the evidence. Even other Astartes do not fully grasp the scale of their burden, because while the chapters wage holy war, the Deathwatch wages a war of secrecy, one where knowledge itself is a weapon capable of corrupting or dooming humanity. For the Ordo Xenos, Xenos threats are not distant rumors. They are tomorrow's extinction event. They have seen tyrannid strains mutate mid-battle, shifting their biomass to counter weapons in real time. They have witnessed Eldari constructs warp human minds like fragile glass. They have recovered orc spores that could infect an entire hive city from a single sample. They have cataloged parasites that hijack human DNA, viruses that rewrite memories, crystalline organisms that grow inside machinery, and extra-dimensional fauna that feed on emotions. The Imperium's armies cannot study these things. Most chapters refuse to even look upon Xenos technology for fear of corruption. The Deathwatch does not have that luxury. They must face every abomination, every corrupted artifact, every biological anomaly, because understanding Xenos is often the only way to kill them. There are things lurking in the galaxy that even Space Marines would hesitate to face. Yet the Deathwatch faces them not as armies, but in squads of 5 or 6. And this secrecy is not born of distrust alone. It is born of necessity. If the Imperium publicly acknowledged every Xenos threat the Deathwatch neutralizes, the galactic population would collapse in terror. Billions would riot, billions would flee, billions would lose faith in the Emperor's protection. So the Deathwatch fights where no one can see, bleeds where no one will remember, and dies where no one will ever know. Even Space Marines returning from their Deathwatch service often carry scars they never speak of: mental, spiritual, and biological. Ritual purification is required not because they have sinned, but because they have witnessed things human minds were never meant to understand. Some return changed, some never return at all, and some return silent, haunted by missions sealed in inquisitorial vaults forever. The Deathwatch also exists because the Imperium cannot trust any single chapter with unrestricted exposure to alien horrors. Each chapter carries its own biases, doctrines, and ancient hatreds. Some would destroy knowledge that could save entire sectors. Others might experiment with what should remain buried. By drawing small numbers from hundreds of chapters, the Deathwatch ensures that no single ideology dominates, no single doctrine blinds them, no single perspective limits their methods. A kill team of Ultramarines, Space Wolves, Blood Angels, and Black Templars is not a squad. It is a fusion of cultures, instincts, and tactics capable of adapting to alien logic faster than any one chapter could. They are a weapon designed not for strength alone, but for versatility, each brother a fragment of a different war philosophy, forged into a single lethal equation. This is why the Deathwatch stands apart. They fight hidden wars because humanity is always one mutation, one artifact, one infestation away from vanishing. They exist because the Imperium's greatest threats never announce themselves. They whisper, corrupt, grow, and infiltrate. They exist because the Imperium needs Space Marines who can think like hunters, not crusaders. They exist because the Xenos threat is not just powerful, it is evolving, adapting, and learning. And as long as the galaxy teems with horrors waiting to strike, the Deathwatch will remain the unseen bulwark between humanity and extinction. If they ever falter, the Imperium will not realize it until the screaming starts. Chapter 2: Birth in Blood. The War of the Beast and the secret oath that created the Deathwatch. What if the Deathwatch, this secretive superhuman brotherhood, was never intended to exist at all, but was forged by a disaster so catastrophic it nearly ended the Imperium in a single generation? To understand their birth, you must return to one of the darkest and least understood moments in Imperial history: the War of the Beast. It was an event so violent, so galaxy-shaking, that many modern commanders believe the Imperium has never fully recovered. The Orcs did not rise as a rabble during this era. They rose as an empire under a war boss of unprecedented power, a creature whose intellect and organization defied everything humanity believed about greenskins. Orc fleets smashed through systems like wildfire, their technology bizarrely advanced, their numbers overwhelming, their unity terrifying. Worlds fell in hours. Crusades collapsed. Even the High Lords panicked. And amidst this apocalyptic chaos, Lord Commander Corland of the Imperial Fists realized something horrifying. Humanity had no specialized force capable of striking directly at the alien leadership structures that allowed this unnatural orc empire to flourish. Space Marine chapters fought bravely but independently, each using their own doctrines, their own strategies, their own pride, and none of them could adapt fast enough to stop an enemy evolving in real time. Courland understood that facing Xenos' empires required more than valor. It required precision, infiltration, and kill teams capable of bypassing entire armies to strike at alien overlords. It was here that the seed of the Deathwatch was planted. Courland proposed a radical concept. Small squads of veteran Astartes drawn from multiple chapters, hand-selected for their ability to counter alien physiology and tactics. These teams would infiltrate orc strongholds, sabotage war engines, assassinate war bosses, and cripple Xenos' chain of command structures from within. His idea was not welcomed, it was heresy to tradition. Chapters guarded their autonomy fiercely. The idea of mixing gene lineages, doctrines, and cultural practices was abhorrent to many. But the Imperium was dying. Even the most rigid commanders recognized that something had to change. And when Courland's prototype kill teams achieved the impossible, penetrating orc citadels and eliminating key targets, the proof became undeniable. Humanity's only victories during the War of the Beast were not won by massive crusades, but by elite Astartes kill teams operating in complete secrecy. When the war finally ended, it was clear that this strategy had saved the Imperium from annihilation. After the war, a shadowed conclave took shape, one of the most secretive gatherings in Imperial history. It was attended by Ordo Xenos inquisitors, chapter masters, and Imperial representatives who understood that the galaxy's Xenos threat would only grow worse. They foresaw Tyranid incursions, Eldari manipulations, Necron resurrections, and even the resurgence of orc empires. They knew humanity would be tested again and again. But they also recognized something else. The Imperium could not publicly acknowledge its vulnerability. So they crafted a solution hidden behind oaths, secrecy, and ritual. A permanent, clandestine brotherhood of elite Astartes who would swear themselves to a sacred obligation known as the Long Vigil. These warriors would keep watch over the Xenos threat, operating from fortified strongholds hidden across the galaxy, answering only to the Ordo Xenos. Their missions would be so classified that not even their own chapters would know where they fought or why. This was the moment the Deathwatch truly began. Not as a chapter, not as an organization, but as a sworn duty, a pact forged in desperation and sealed in silence. From the very beginning, the Deathwatch was built around sacrifice. Space Marines seconded to them had to abandon their heraldry, their colors, their identity. The symbols of their chapters were reduced to a single shoulder pauldron, everything else replaced with the black and silver of the Long Vigil. For many Astartes, this was the greatest honor they would ever receive, and the greatest pain. To leave one's brothers, one's history, one's Primarch-born lineage behind, even temporarily, was a wound no physical battle could match. But they did it because they understood the truth. Humanity needed warriors unbound by the limitations of doctrine, creed, or pride. Warriors who could adapt to any alien threat, learn from any enemy, and deploy anywhere without questions or ceremony. As centuries passed, the oath made in the shadow of the War of the Beast grew into something far larger than its founders could have imagined. Watch fortresses were constructed in remote star systems, orbiting dead worlds, drifting in asteroid fields, or hidden within derelict void cities. Each fortress became a sovereign domain, answering only to the Ordo Xenos and commanded by a watch commander whose authority superseded even that of visiting chapter masters. Every fortress developed its own kill team traditions, its own specialized war gear, its own libraries of alien knowledge collected over millennia. And yet, they all remained united by the oath forged during the Orc Crisis. Humanity must never again face extinction because it failed to understand its enemy. Kill teams trained relentlessly in Xenos adaptation drills, learning to counter foes from Tyrannid synapse beasts to Tau stealth cadres. They studied alien languages, dissected captured organisms, memorized weak points, and trained in war scenarios built from hundreds of recorded encounters. Their entire purpose was singular: to ensure that no matter what alien horror emerged from the void, someone would be ready to kill it. What makes this origin so chilling is that the Imperium never celebrated it. The War of the Beast is remembered as a tragedy, not a triumph. Most records of Corlin's actions were classified, sealed, or destroyed. The Deathwatch itself became a myth to anyone outside the Inquisition or the Astartes elite. And that was intentional. The Deathwatch was never meant to be known, because their existence admits that humanity cannot survive without warriors who break the rules of the Imperium itself. The secret oath sworn in the aftermath of that ancient war continues to shape the galaxy today, binding generations of Astartes into the silent struggle their primogenitors began. Every kill team, every fortress, every black-armored warrior carries the legacy of Corlin's desperate vision. A future where humanity endures because a handful of hidden superhumans stand vigil in the dark, watching the stars for dangers no one else is prepared to face. Chapter 3: Brothers from 1,000 Chapters. The rituals, conflicts, and sacrifices behind the Long Vigil. What does it truly mean for a Space Marine? An immortal warrior forged in the image of a Primarch, to abandon his chapter, his brothers, his colors, and his identity to serve in silence among strangers. To understand the Deathwatch's power, you must understand the sacrifice behind it. Space Marines are not interchangeable soldiers. Each chapter is a culture, a religion, a family, a legacy stretching back 10,000 years. The Sons of Guilliman are drilled with discipline and logic. The Sons of Russ carry the feral soul of Fenris. The Blood Angels bear the artistic melancholy and cursed hunger of Sanguinius. The Dark Angels hide secrets darker than night. The Black Templars burn with zealous fury. The Salamanders carry human compassion. The Iron Hands prize cold augmentation. The Raven Guard live in shadows. These differences are not cosmetic. They define how each Marine fights, thinks, and lives. And yet, when a Marine is chosen for the Deathwatch, he must set all of that aside. He must remove the colors of his chapter, scrape away its heraldry, and don the black and silver of the Long Vigil. This single act is more emotionally devastating than any battlefield wound, because it severs him from the identity he has carried since he first drew breath as an Astartes. The only symbol he keeps is his chapter's pauldron, a reminder of where he came from, but also a reminder that he no longer belongs fully to that family. Inside a watch fortress, these cultural fractures collide with brutal force. Imagine a space wolf, boisterous, instinct-driven, contemptuous of rigidity, sharing a briefing chamber with an ultramarine whose entire life is dictated by the Codex Astartes. Imagine a Black Templar who despises psychers, forced to serve alongside a librarian from the Blood Ravens who sees psychic study as sacred. Imagine a dark angel who refuses to speak of his chapter's past, working beside a space marine from a successor chapter who doesn't even know the secrets he bleeds to hide. These marines bring centuries of tradition, ritual, and bias into one room, and then they are told to fight as a single organism. The Deathwatch does not care about their differences. It demands they overcome them. The training is relentless and psychologically brutal because it must break not their will, but their assumptions. Every Marine is forced to confront the alien, the unknown, and more importantly, the alien within his own brothers. Where chapters often refuse to adopt the doctrines of others, the Deathwatch requires it. Every warrior must learn Eldar countermaneuvers, Tyranid synapse disruption, Orc behavioral patterns, Tau stealth path logic, and Necron reanimation cycles. This knowledge is forbidden in many chapters. In the Deathwatch, it is mandatory. Yet the greatest tension does not lie in doctrine or training. It lies in trust. A kill team is a crucible where centuries-old rivalries burn away or detonate violently. Space wolves and dark angels have despised each other since the burning of Caliban. Blood angels and flesh tearers share tragedies others whisper about. Imperial fists and iron warriors fought civil wars that have never truly healed. When these Marines stand shoulder to shoulder, the air is thick with resentment, pride, and mistrust. But the Deathwatch does something no chapter has ever achieved. It forces these differences into synergy. A space wolf's instinctive ferocity complements an ultramarine's measured precision. A Raven Guard's stealth expertise pairs with a Black Templar's unyielding frontal assault. A Salamander's compassion anchors the cold logic of an iron hand. Kill teams are not just squads, they are masterpieces of combined war philosophy. And when they function, they are terrifyingly effective, each Marine compensating for weaknesses the others never realized they had. But harmony is not guaranteed. Many Deathwatch recruits struggle to accept the authority of the Ordo Xenos. Inquisitors are infamous for their paranoia, their ruthless mandates, and their willingness to order extermination of entire worlds for reasons they do not share. Space Marines are warriors of noble causes, forged with purpose. They do not bend easily to outside command. In the Deathwatch, they must. A watch commander's word supersedes every chapter tradition. An Inquisitor's command can override centuries of doctrine. For a Space Marine who believes his Primarch's teachings are sacred law, obeying a mortal Inquisitor is a test of humility bordering on spiritual agony. Some accept this. Many resent it. A few break beneath it. Those who endure become something different, warriors who no longer see the galaxy through the lens of one chapter's beliefs, but through a mosaic of perspectives, each sharpened by alien conflict. Rituals within the Deathwatch serve to both unify and divide. The initiation ceremonies vary across fortresses, but all involve the symbolic death of a Marine's old identity. Some watch stations conduct rites where recruits carry torches through halls lined with the names of fallen brothers they will never know. Others require recruits to face captured Xeno specimens, studying them without hatred because hatred blinds, and the Deathwatch cannot afford blindness. Others enforce isolation periods where recruits must meditate on the Long Vigil, accepting that their duty may never be celebrated, remembered, or honored. And yet, these rituals bind them. In the Deathwatch, the only loyalty that matters is the mission, the kill team, and the vigil itself. Every Marine must learn to trust warriors who share nothing with him. No homeworld, no customs, no war cries, except the oath they now carry. Over time, something remarkable happens. The friction becomes fusion. The rivalries turn to respect. The doctrines interlock. Marines who once would have bristled at each other's presence begin to understand the strengths buried beneath unfamiliar ways. A space wolf learns that the ultramarine beside him is not rigid. He is reliable. A dark angel learns the Black Templar is not reckless. He is fearless. A raven guard learns the salamander is not slow. He is enduring. Slowly, painfully, the Deathwatch molds individuals into a brotherhood built not on shared origin, but shared burden. And to a space marine, that burden is heavier than any armor. They must fight for humanity in ways no one will ever know, with brothers they will eventually leave behind, in wars they can never speak of. This is the sacrifice of the Long Vigil. A Deathwatch Marine does not just risk death, he risks being forgotten. He risks returning to his chapter as a stranger. He risks carrying memories he cannot purge and secrets he cannot share. He becomes a warrior who belongs everywhere and nowhere, forged into a weapon purpose-built for threats the Imperium cannot admit exist. This is the emotional and psychological price behind the Deathwatch's power. Every kill team is not just a fusion of tactics, but a fusion of wounds, oaths, and identities that must coexist or collapse. And in that fragile crucible, the Deathwatch finds its greatest strength, a unity earned through sacrifice, not birth. Because only a brotherhood forged from 1,000 chapters can stand against a galaxy of enemies none of them could survive alone. Chapter 4, Inside the Shadows, Watch Fortresses, Kill Team Doctrine, and the Sovereign Strongholds across the galaxy. What if some of the most important military bases in the Imperium, fortresses capable of stopping planetary extinction events, were hidden in plain sight above unsuspecting worlds, completely invisible to the very citizens they protected? That is the terrifying reality of the Deathwatch's watch fortresses. Sovereign, clandestine strongholds scattered across the galaxy, each operating as its own micro-empire beyond the reach of any chapter, any sector lord, and sometimes even beyond the oversight of the Inquisition itself. These fortresses are not monuments or bastions of glory. They are research labs, war rooms, training vaults, armories, and execution chambers designed for one purpose: studying, countering and eliminating alien threats before the galaxy even knows they exist. Entire civilizations go about their daily lives beneath these stations, never realizing that orbiting above them is a fortress full of superhuman warriors dissecting Xenos organisms, mapping alien invasion vectors, and preparing to intercept horrors that would have consumed them whole. Each watch fortress is fully autonomous, commanded by a watch commander whose authority supersedes even visiting chapter masters. Within those walls, the Long Vigil is absolute law. The architecture of these fortresses reflects their mission. Labyrinths of kill zones, gene-coded armories, containment vaults for alien artifacts, and sealed laboratories where Ordo Xenos Magi perform studies so dangerous they are forbidden on Imperial soil. These fortresses are strategically positioned near borders where alien contact is frequent, near Tyranid splinter paths, Orc Empire fringes, Necron awakening zones, Eldari webway nodes, Tau exploration corridors, and uncharted voids. And though each fortress is sovereign, they are united by a single unspoken truth. If a watch fortress falls, entire sectors may follow. Inside, kill teams train endlessly in simulation chambers that replicate Xenos battlefields in perfect detail, from the pheromone-soaked jungles of Tyranid infestation worlds to the shifting gravity fields of Necron tomb labyrinths. They study alien language fragments, analyze nerve clusters, memorize weak points, practice boarding maneuvers in zero-gravity hulks, and rehearse scenarios so lethal that even Astartes sometimes fail them. The Deathwatch trains not for victory, but for the worst-case scenario, the arrival of a threat so alien that human doctrine means nothing. Every watch fortress is a vault of knowledge humanity was never meant to see. Alien organs preserved in stasis tanks. Disassembled Necron limbs still twitching with impossible energy. Psychodead zones carved into the architecture to imprison warp-sensitive creatures. Tactical archives containing data on hundreds of species, some extinct, some still evolving, some so anomalous they break biological classification entirely. Each fortress maintains containment zones where captured Xenos artifacts are studied by librarians, tech marines, and inquisitorial savants. These studies walk the razor's edge between enlightenment and damnation. One misinterpreted glyph, one improperly shielded sample, one unstable alien relic could doom the fortress in seconds. And yet, without this forbidden knowledge, the Imperium would be blind. The Deathwatch does not fear alien secrets, they weaponize them. They understand that knowledge is not corruption when used with discipline, caution, and the iron resolve of an Astartes mind. Kill Team doctrine itself is a marvel of lethal design. Unlike traditional Astartes squads, Deathwatch teams are not homogeneous units, they are tactical ecosystems. One member may be a heavy melee specialist from the Space Wolves, another a stealth expert from the Raven Guard, another a battlefield tactician from the Ultramarines, another a demolition specialist from the Imperial Fists, and another a psyker from the Blood Ravens or Dark Angels. Each Marine brings a microculture of warfare. Together, they form a multidimensional response unit designed to counter any alien threat by combining strengths no single chapter possesses. Deathwatch missions rarely exceed 5 to 7 warriors. They do not wage open war, they infiltrate, isolate, assassinate, sabotage, purge, and vanish. Their doctrine teaches that killing the Xenos is not always the objective. Sometimes the objective is the artifact they protect, the data they carry, the synapse beast that controls them, or the warp-tainted nexus they feed upon. A Deathwatch kill team can eliminate a planetary threat by removing a single target, but identifying that target is what makes them truly lethal. The armor and weapons of the Deathwatch reflect this surgical specialization. Their signature black armor, polished ceramite accented with silver, symbolizes the deathly vigilance they embody. But beneath this aesthetic is advanced customization. Modular plating tailored for specific Xenos hazards, joint articulation enhanced for silent infiltration, and integrated auspex arrays fine-tuned to detect alien pheromones, warp signatures, or bioelectric fields. Their weapons are even more specialized. The Deathwatch bolter, known as the Deathwatch pattern or Vigil bolter, fires ammunition so exotic it borders on heresy. Hellfire shells that dissolve tyrannid flesh on contact, Kraken penetrators capable of piercing Necron alloys, Dragonfire rounds designed to kill enemies in cover, and Metal Storm dispersal charges that detonate mid-air to clear swarms. And that is only their standard loadout. Many kill teams deploy with Xenotech-augmented weapons, studied, replicated, sterilized, and sanctioned under the tightest inquisitorial scrutiny. To the Deathwatch, a weapon is not sacred, it is a tool. If it kills Xenos, they use it. Yet for all their power, watch fortresses bear an emotional cost. Astartes serving within them are surrounded not by the familiar heraldry of their chapter, but by alien trophies, forbidden relics, and the oppressive silence of secrecy. Many fortresses maintain memorial halls where the names of fallen Deathwatch veterans are inscribed not with glory, but with symbols of missions that cannot be spoken. Some watch stations orbit dead worlds swallowed by tyrannids, their viewports opening onto fields of cosmic bones. Others drift through asteroid belts haunted by the wrecks of lost fleets. Marines stationed here learn something even their chapters rarely admit. The galaxy is far more hostile, far more intelligent, and far more prepared for war than humanity will ever be. And yet, the Deathwatch remains, watching the void with cold discipline, ready to strike at threats long before they reach Imperial eyes. The sovereignty of these fortresses is both their strength and their burden. They operate outside the chain of command that governs traditional chapters. They answer to no planetary governor, no segmentum marshal, and often not even to local inquisitorial conclaves. They exist in a gray zone of authority, empowered to make decisions that could alter star system destinies. A watch commander may order the silent purging of a world to prevent a tyrannid outbreak. He may deny aid to a besieged Imperial colony if the Xenos threat requires study before elimination. He may launch a kill team strike deep into Necron territory without approval from any Imperial office. This autonomy is necessary, but it isolates the Deathwatch from the Imperium they protect. This is the hidden truth of watch fortresses. They are not places of honor, but places of responsibility, temples of burden. A Marine who enters their halls does not serve glory. He serves necessity. He does not fight for praise. He fights for prevention. And while the Imperium sleeps beneath the illusion of safety, the Deathwatch watches the darkness, fully aware that their fortresses may be the only reason entire sectors still exist. If a watch fortress ever falls, the Imperium might not even learn of its death until the Xenos invasion is already unstoppable. Such is the weight of the Shadow Empire known as the Deathwatch. Chapter 5: Xenos Hunters and Forbidden Knowledge. The Deathwatch's role as the Ordo Xenos blade and scalpel. What if humanity's greatest weapon against alien extinction isn't its armies, fleets, assassins, or technology, but the forbidden knowledge gathered by warriors who study the Xenos so closely they risk becoming what they hunt? This is the domain of the Deathwatch, a force that exists not only to kill alien horrors but to understand them with a depth of insight that would terrify the wider Imperium. Unlike traditional Space Marine chapters, who view Xenos with pure hatred or doctrinal revulsion, the Deathwatch is required, by duty, by practicality, by the Long Vigil, to examine alien physiology, psychology, culture, and technology with cold precision. In a galaxy where ignorance is death and misunderstanding can doom entire sectors, the Deathwatch's mastery of Xenos knowledge is the thin line between humanity's survival and annihilation. They do not simply fight Tyranids, they map synapse networks, study hive hierarchies, and analyze how bioforms mutate under battlefield stress. They do not merely battle Eldari, they dissect wraithbone constructs, track psychic signatures, and decipher the strategies born from millennia of alien prophecy. They do not just purge orc infestations, they analyze spore densities, identify mech pattern anomalies, and track the evolution of orcoid subcultures. For the Deathwatch, knowledge is not heresy, it is ammunition. Inside their watch fortresses, this knowledge accumulates like a storm. Specimens float in stasis cages, Tyranid feeder tendrils twitching with residual instinct, Eldari soulstones humming faintly with psionic echoes, crystalline necron fragments resisting decay even after disassembly. Tech Marines and inquisitorial savants catalog impossible technologies, from Xenos plasma cores that rewrite physics to organic weapons that grow like vines. Librarians interpret psychic artifacts that whisper in languages older than humanity, while apothecaries study alien pathogens capable of mutating human cells in seconds. This research isn't academic, it's survival training. Every piece of knowledge gathered is another way to kill something that would otherwise slaughter billions. Unlike the Adeptus Mechanicus, which sees alien technology as blasphemy, the Deathwatch sees it as a tactical advantage, so long as it is controlled, sterilized, and understood. Even Xenotech replicas, modified versions of alien designs, are used if they provide an edge, though these weapons are carefully regulated and often destroyed after their missions end. Kill teams serve as both blades and data-gathering instruments for the Ordo Xenos. A mission might involve eliminating a Tyranid vanguard organism, but the true objective is often the corpse, its tissues, synapse nodes, and bioadaptations more valuable than any trophy. A kill team might be deployed to intercept a rising orc weirdboy, not only to kill him but to record fluctuations in WAC. Energy. They may infiltrate a Drukhari raiding force not just to dismantle it, but to study how their Shadowfield generators distort local space. They may shadow Tau expansion fleets, gathering intel on their new wargear iterations, shield harmonics, or AI-driven drone formations. The Deathwatch's success depends on understanding alien logic so well that they can predict a species' next evolution before it manifests. This predictive ability is what enables them to eliminate threats long before they become system-wide emergencies. But this intimacy with alien knowledge comes with a psychological and spiritual burden. Space Marines are conditioned from indoctrination to hate Xenos absolutely, to reject their influence, and to avoid their technology. The Deathwatch forces them to override that instinct. They must observe without rage, study without disgust, and remain analytical even when the Xenos before them represents everything their chapter oath taught them to despise. For many Marines, this is a torment more difficult than any battle. A Black Templar forced to catalog Eldari artifact logic must confront his indoctrinated hatred. A salamander studying Tyranid adaptations must accept that compassion has no place in understanding an organism designed to consume galaxies. A dark angel researching Necron resurrection protocols must resist the temptation to draw parallels to his own hidden sins. The Deathwatch asks each Marine to walk a razor's edge, understand the alien deeply, but never sympathize, never admire, never emulate. And yet, understanding inevitably breeds insight, and insight can become obsession if left unchecked. The Ordo Xenos relies on the Deathwatch because conventional Imperial science cannot handle the risks. Civilian researchers would be corrupted or killed. Tech priests would either declare the objects heretical or attempt to imitate them disastrously. Even other Astartes chapters cannot be trusted to handle artifacts without bias or reactionary destruction. Only the Deathwatch possesses the discipline, strength, and cold pragmatism to work with alien material without succumbing to its dangers. Their kill teams often serve as recovery squads retrieving relics that should never fall into enemy hands. Ancient Necron pylons capable of warping reality, Tyranid capillary towers that function as planetary digestion organs, Eldar spirit technology that traps minds, or parasitic organisms that overwrite human DNA. These items are secured, studied, and, if necessary, obliterated under the supervision of Watch commanders and inquisitors who understand the thin margin between enlightenment and corruption. There is also a deeper, more disturbing layer. The Deathwatch's intelligence network monitors alien species across centuries, charting their rise, fall, migration, and mutation. They know where dormant Necron dynasties lie. They track how Farsight enclaves expand. They map Orc empires forming WAFs before the Orcs themselves realize it. They follow cryptic Eldari rituals predicting warp anomalies. They analyze Tyranid splinter fleet trajectories like a cosmic autopsy. Their greatest weapon is not firepower, it is foresight. The Imperium depends on the Deathwatch not just to react to alien threats, but to anticipate them. In many cases, the Deathwatch prevents wars by destroying alien scouting parties or colonies before they gain a foothold. The worlds saved by these actions never learn how close they came to destruction. Yet the Deathwatch's pursuit of forbidden knowledge has a price. Exposure to alien logic alters perspective. Studying Xenos technology challenges dogma. Learning alien psychology erodes the simplicity of hatred that shields other Astartes from doubt. Marines return to their chapters changed. More analytical, more cautious, more watchful. Some are revered. Some are distrusted. A few become outsiders within their own brotherhoods. But this is the cost of the vigil, to carry understanding that isolates them from the very Imperium they save. And in the Ordo Xenos' eyes, this cost is necessary, because ignorance, not heresy, is what truly kills humanity when the Xenos evolve faster than Imperial doctrine. In the end, the Deathwatch exists as the Ordo Xenos' blade and scalpel, cutting away alien corruption while dissecting its remains to prevent future outbreaks. They operate in secrecy not because their actions are shameful, but because their knowledge is too dangerous for the Imperium to bear openly. Their victories are silent, their discoveries locked away, their warnings heeded by only a handful of shadowed officials. And yet, without them, whole sectors would have already fallen to alien apocalypse. The Deathwatch doesn't simply fight Xenos, they understand them so humanity doesn't have to. That is their burden and their greatest weapon. Chapter 6: Fractured Allegiances. Civil wars, tension with inquisitors, and the political cost of being the hidden Astartes. What happens when the galaxy's most elite alien hunters, drawn from proud chapters with centuries of unbroken tradition, are forced to swear obedience to inquisitors who can order exterminatus with a signature and a whisper. This is the silent battlefield at the heart of the Deathwatch. Not the war against the Xenos, but the war within Imperial politics, a conflict of command, ideology, and authority that threatens to fracture even the most disciplined Astartes warrior. Space Marines are born into absolute loyalty to their primarch, their chapter, their oath-bound brothers. Yet the Long Vigil demands they sever those bonds, if only temporarily, to serve a force many chapters distrust. Inquisitors of the Ordo Xenos, armed with the authority of the Emperor's holy orders, wield absolute power, but absolute power has a cost, and its collision with the pride of the Astartes is a spark that can ignite entire kill teams. Within watch fortresses, political tension hums beneath the steel floors. Marines who would die gladly beside their chapter brothers now find themselves serving under commanders who may have ordered purges against Astartes chapters in the past, or who may do so tomorrow. Some inquisitors respect the Astartes. Others see them as tools, assets, or pieces on a board they alone control. This creates a cold, dangerous air. One wrong command, one morally questionable mission, one act of overreach, and the line between obedience and rebellion grows razor thin. These tensions begin the moment a Marine arrives at a watch fortress. Many chapters view the Inquisition with suspicion or outright hostility. The Space Wolves have famously clashed with them, burning whole inquisitorial enclaves when their independence was threatened. The Black Templars refuse to be subordinated to human authorities they do not consider divinely guided. The Dark Angels guard secrets so deeply that inquisitorial scrutiny is seen as a direct existential threat. Even the Ultramarines, paragons of stability, harbor resentment toward inquisitors who meddle in strategic affairs without understanding the battlefield. When Marines from these lineages stand shoulder to shoulder under inquisitorial command, they bring scars of old grudges that can flare into perilous conflict. Some Marines swallow their pride in service of the Vigil. Others grind their teeth behind their helmets, obeying orders while looking for reasons not to trust the hand that gives them. Within watch fortresses, authority is a complex web. A watch commander is an Astartes and holds military primacy within the fortress, but an Ordo Xenos inquisitor outranks him in matters of strategic priority. This creates a delicate balance. An inquisitor may demand an operation the watch commander deems suicide, unnecessary, or morally abhorrent. The commander may argue, protest, or stall, but ultimately the inquisitors will carry terrifying weight. This can bring kill teams to the brink of refusing orders, an unthinkable act for Astartes, yet not impossible when commands threaten their honor or violate their genetic memory of duty. There have been cases where kill teams have walked out, where watch commanders have sent fake confirmations to hide their refusal, where inquisitors have been quietly removed from command for the good of humanity, and where entire fortresses nearly erupted into violence over a single contested decision. These incidents are buried in sealed archives, but their shadows remain in the quiet tension between silver-clad Marines and robed inquisitors who stroll their halls with impunity. Beyond internal tension, the Deathwatch must navigate political fractures across the Imperium. Many chapters resent having their veterans taken away, even if only temporarily. A chapter at war may suffer crippling losses because its most experienced warriors are bound to the Long Vigil. Other chapters refuse to send their finest, offering only those they consider acceptable losses, creating resentment within kill teams who must rely on warriors whose chapters do not value the Vigil. There are even whispers of chapters that secretly forbid their elite from serving, offering only probationary or politically inconvenient Marines as tribute. This creates invisible hierarchies inside kill teams, warriors who believe they were sacrificed by their own chapters, and others who believe they were chosen because they were indispensable. In a kill team, where unity is everything, such invisible wounds can become fatal cracks. Conflicts also arise when Marines return home. A Deathwatch veteran brings with him knowledge of alien physiology, xenotech, and forbidden artifacts. Knowledge his chapter does not want, cannot accept, or deeply fears. A Marine who speaks too openly risks suspicion of corruption. A Marine who speaks too little is feared for what he holds back. Even among their brothers, Deathwatch veterans walk as half-strangers, carrying secrets that shape their judgment in ways their chapter cannot fully trust. Some chapters revere these veterans, seeing them as hardened survivors of wars fought in darkness. Others isolate them, assigning them to solitary roles, believing their understanding of Xenos thought to be a spiritual contagion. The very knowledge that makes a Deathwatch Marine invaluable in the Vigil makes him dangerous back home. Even more dangerous are the moments when inquisitorial agendas contradict Astartes' ethics. There are times when an Inquisitor will order the elimination of a world infected by an alien pathogen, even if the population could be cured. Times when the Inquisition demands the capture of living Xenos specimens, even if such actions endanger Imperial forces. Times when kill teams are told to stand down, not because the threat is gone, but because the Inquisition wishes to observe its evolution for study. These decisions cause deep moral wounds within the Deathwatch, especially for chapters like the Salamanders or Space Wolves, who prioritize protecting human lives above all else. To obey such directives is agony. To refuse is treason. And so the Deathwatch lives in this tension, bound by chains of duty that clash with the oaths they swore as Astartes. Despite all this, the Vigil endures because the threat is greater than the politics. Marines learn to fight beside those they would have challenged to duels in their home chapters. Watch commanders learn to interpret inquisitorial intent without losing their autonomy. Inquisitors learn to rely on Marines who view them with suspicion but obey out of necessity. The Deathwatch survives because it must, and because no one else can do what they do. The galaxy's threats are too vast, too relentless, too strange for unity to be optional. The Deathwatch's strength is not harmony. It is controlled friction, the fusion of proud war cultures forced to cooperate under the crushing weight of survival. They serve in the shadows not because they wish to, but because someone must. The political cost of being the hidden Astartes is enormous. They sacrifice their identity, their place within their chapter, their trust in Imperial authority, and often their emotional connection to the Imperium itself. They return home changed, sometimes untrusted, sometimes revered, always altered. And yet they remain loyal, not to the Inquisition, not to their chapters, but to humanity itself. Because in the darkest recesses of the galaxy, where alien abominations wait unseen, the Deathwatch stands as the last barrier, and political grudges mean nothing when extinction is one mistake away. Chapter 7, The Never-Ending Vigil. How the Deathwatch saves humanity in ways no one will ever know. What if the greatest heroes of humanity are the ones no one remembers, no one celebrates, and no one is even allowed to acknowledge? The Deathwatch lives inside this tragic paradox. They carry out some of the most critical galaxy-shaping operations in the Imperium's entire history, yet their names, deeds, and sacrifices are buried under layers of secrecy so thick that even their own chapters may never learn what they did. These warriors stand at the intersection of duty and anonymity, fighting a war that cannot end, cannot be public, and cannot be fully understood by anyone outside the Ordo Xenos. They are the guardians of humanity's blind spots, the dark corners where alien horrors breed, the silent voids where Xenos fleets gather, the forgotten ruins where extinction gestates like a plague. The Deathwatch stops wars before they begin, prevents invasions before alarms sound, and eliminates threats so quietly that entire civilizations live and die without realizing they were ever in danger. This unseen labor is the essence of the Long Vigil, to fight endlessly in shadow so that humanity may continue living in blissful ignorance of the true scale of the cosmic predators surrounding them. When a kill team deploys, there is no fanfare, no banners, no rites of triumph. They do not announce their presence, and they leave no trace behind. They infiltrate drifting space hulks infected with unknown bioforms, descend into alien catacombs beneath desert moons, sabotage orc mech factories hidden inside hollowed asteroids, or execute surgical strikes deep inside Eldari webway ruptures. Every battle they fight is against something that has already slipped past Imperial defenses, something too cunning, too advanced, or too horrifying for conventional forces to recognize until it's too late. Their missions are the difference between a single silent operation and a planetary genocide. And yet, when they succeed, all credit is swallowed by secrecy, and when they fall, their bodies are recovered or destroyed without explanation. In the Deathwatch, even death becomes classified. One of the most haunting aspects of the Long Vigil is that the Deathwatch often wins battles the galaxy will never even know existed. A kill team might intercept a tyrannid splinter organism before it establishes a biomass foothold. They may eliminate a Necron recon construct whose discovery would trigger a full dynasty awakening. They might destroy an orc warlord whose rise would have kindled a whack large enough to swallow entire subsectors. They may silence an Eldari artifact that, if activated, could collapse a world's psychic integrity. These victories are not just hidden, they are erased. Records are scrubbed, worlds are quarantined without explanation, and inquisitorial edicts enforce silence so absolute that not even planetary governors can question it. The Deathwatch does not simply fight in shadows. They erase their own footprints to protect the Imperium from the truth of how vulnerable it truly is. But the emotional burden of this secrecy is immense. Space Marines are warriors shaped by glory, honor, and the legacy of their primarchs. Their deeds are meant to inspire. Yet Deathwatch veterans return to their chapters with stories they cannot share and wounds they cannot explain. Their brothers ask how they survived impossible odds. They cannot answer. Their chaplains demand confession. They must remain silent. Their masters ask for tactical insight. They speak politely around the horrors they endured. This silence isolates them, not by punishment, but by the weight of knowledge too dangerous to reveal. Many veterans carry this isolation for centuries. Some become distant, others brooding, some overly cautious, others grimly practical. They see every battlefield through the lens of experiences they can never articulate. The sight of alien ecologies mutating under their boots, the sound of tyrannid synaptic pulses reverberating through metal corridors, the shifting shadows of Drukhari torture engines, the cold hum of Necron monoliths powering up in the dark. Yet despite this isolation, despite the secrecy, despite the sacrifices that erase even their greatest victories, the The Deathwatch endures because they know something their chapters often forget. The Imperium does not survive on strength alone. It survives because someone is always watching the darkness. Someone is always hunting the things humanity does not see. Someone is always willing to stand in the void where no glory exists. This unseen heroism binds the kill teams together more tightly than any chapter tradition. A Marine may enter the Deathwatch as a son of Sanguinius, Russ, Dorn, Guilliman, Vulcan, or the Lion, but he leaves as something else entirely. A brother of the Vigil, a warrior forged by shared silence, shared burden, and shared knowledge of what truly lurks between the stars. The Long Vigil also carries an ideological weight. Over centuries, the Deathwatch has witnessed threats the Imperium refuses to acknowledge publicly. Minor Xenos species capable of planetary infestation in days, hybridization plagues born from forgotten alien relics, cosmic predators that defy biological classification, warp-sensitive fauna whose presence destabilizes psychers, even long-lost human offshoots whose evolution has twisted them into something unrecognizable. The Ordo Xenos classifies these threats, studies them, and sometimes weaponizes the knowledge. But the Deathwatch, the ones who face them firsthand, understand the fragility of humanity in a way few others can comprehend. They see how easily an undefended world can fall, how quickly an outbreak can spread, how swiftly an alien artifact can warp reality. They know that victory in one place does not guarantee survival in another. This perspective turns Deathwatch veterans into the Imperium's most realistic and most grim warriors. They do not hope for peace because they know peace is a temporary illusion. They do not expect stability because they know stability breeds complacency. They expect the Vigil to last forever because the threats will never stop evolving. And so the Deathwatch watches the void, watches the borders of forgotten empires, watches the webway fissures, watches the ruins of dead civilizations, watches the drifting hulks, watches the ruins beneath Imperial hive cities. They watch with the patience of stone and the vigilance of predators, because they carry the unspoken truth. If they ever stop watching, humanity dies. Their vigil is endless not because they seek an eternal war, but because the galaxy demands it. No matter how many missions they complete, no matter how many alien species they exterminate, no matter how many relics they contain, the darkness always moves, always mutates, always finds new ways to threaten mankind. The Deathwatch accepts this with a grim resolve that no other force possesses. They are the Imperium's scalpel, shield, executioner, and secret keeper. They fight not for glory, but for necessity. Not to be remembered, but so others never have to face what they have seen. In the end, the Deathwatch embodies a truth older than the Imperium itself. Not all heroes are known, and not all victories can be spoken. Their legacy lives in the silence they protect, the worlds they save without recognition, and the horrors they confront without fear. Humanity survives because these warriors choose to walk into the darkest corners of the galaxy and emerge, scarred, silent, unbroken. They have taken the Long Vigil, a burden no one else can carry, and they will bear it for as long as the stars burn. Because in the grim darkness of the far future, where there is only war, the Deathwatch remains humanity's last hidden hope.